Hello, everyone. This is Zayami from FilmFestivalCircuit.com and the Oregon Shore Film Festival. Right now, we're gearing up for our spring event, which is going to take place on March 17th at the Clinton Street Theater in Portland, Oregon. And today, we're talking with one of our participating filmmakers. Justen Noll is the writer and director behind Glumby, The Final Chapters. Justin, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this is the a second in a Glumby series. The first one, you were the writer, and there's a different director, Phil Noth, I believe.
Phil North, yeah.
Phil North, yes. And
Yeah.
so for this one, you're taking over, directing and acting duties. Tell me, what was that process like?
Yeah, so it was very much a collaborative process with the first one. I came to him with an idea based on an actual billboard in Grand Ronde, Oregon, on the way to and from the coast from Salem. If you go that highway to Lincoln City,
Oh, totally.
and there's no explanation for it, so I was just like, what if the original idea came from like, what if there's a photography contest and this guy is just trying to come up with these kind of pictures, and there's this whole setup, and they end up not winning the contest, and it kind of almost goes into that like um anti-American comedy in that sense, where it's not a hopeful ending.
Totally.
But he was like, what if we actually had the main character be Gumby? And we saw that there's a suit, and he was like, I'm not wearing the suit. So I'm like, if we're doing this thing, I will wear the suit. So I wore the suit in the first one during a heat wave.
Dang.
Um, and then the air quality was going down because there ended up being wildfires at that time
Right.
when we shot it. And so, but it was a whole collaborative thing, and it was really, the first one was definitely influenced a lot by him, with him kind of taking directing duties, and he left for the Navy that November,
Oh,
um, so I had to kind of finish the edit and like kind of get that first practice of what would Phil do.
right.
So
Okay.
then I sat on, not doing a sequel for a while, and like naturally I did have like ideas, but nothing like I wanted to pursue, because I'm like, I couldn't do it if I wasn't able to collaborate with him. But then as last year went along, particularly as we got later on to the year, I had all these different ideas, and was playing around with it, that were definitely kind of evolved the initial ideas from back around when the first one premiered, really kind of shifting from kind of the satire being to AI instead of doing like political correctness,
Right.
and basically, throughout this whole process I had to ask, what would Phil do? Um, and the fortunate thing is I had like 8 years of experience working with him and like being one of my best friends. So
Totally.
I'm like, I had a little glimpse inside his mind. And by doing that, I was able to really try to think of like, okay, where would we take this? And since I'm like, he has one sense of humor, I have another sense of humor. So I had to kind of like, do like a mock, a
Right.
mock,
Like a mock
uh,
dialogue.
yeah, exactly. And it really kind of grew. This one definitely was a lot more scripted than the first one.
Okay.
I think there was a lot more conversations around the first one, so that influenced it. So like we were very informed, and a lot of the information on this one was based around having like a script, and
Okay.
um,
Totally.
but some of the sequences were a little bit more improvised, particularly around the AI art, like the artist
Okay. Yeah.
behind the billboard, because we needed that component to carry over. But then we also needed some structure because it was covering a lot more scope. You have, instead of just interviewing Blake Chuxley, the Gumby actor, you're interviewing a whole cast of characters, with all different perspectives. And There's so many different avenues of comedy that this one's pursuing, so it kind of really needed a little bit more cohesiveness, and a
Totally.
little bit more planning. And um, it wasn't like word for word scripted, but it definitely was more structured, and that's just what it required. And it was a lot, it was a lot different in that sense. But ultimately, like the experience of making it was still a lot of fun. Um, I didn't get heat exhaustion
Nice.
from the suit this time, so I think that's a win. That's progress.
That's progress. Yeah.
Um, but I still got the same amount of looks out in public though.
Definitely.
Um, there, yeah. Um, there are sequences in particular from both movies where it's just like, yep, you can imagine there's people looking.
Right. Well, I love that. I like that you expanded the story, kind of expanded the characters, and by virtue of doing that, you had to tighten up the script a little bit, but you still brought in improvisation. You still worked on that collaboration, and it's interesting to hear that kind of your directing mantra was trying to embody Phil North, who's kind of your friend and maybe mentor in directing. But I think by virtue of doing that, you blossomed your own style. And I mean, when you do your next film, you can probably just say, "This is me now directing."
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically, I think kind of the shift is like, you know, really since COVID, there's been my filmmaking network has kind of drastically shrunk.
All right. Okay.
And um so the nature of collaboration is a lot different. Like it's harder to, to have a lot more people to collaborate with, and
Right.
so there's a lot more intentionality. And and basically, um I think the process kind of going forward from that is like being able to kind of be outside of myself a little bit, in terms of like, particularly taking different lenses, taking a viewer's lens, an audience lens, a filmmaker, writer, like all these different lenses, doing a better job at that. So I'm not, so I can look at things a little bit more objectively and for just subjectively.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, in the process of like improving like a script or an edit. Um, yeah, like the fortunate thing is like I've had I have so many years of experience like doing all different kinds of jobs, like with each film. And one of my primary hats has been directing,
Mm.
but in the comedy realm it's definitely been a lot more collaborative. Like
Oh, okay.
um uh since usually like if it's a dramedy, I'm usually kind of sole directing it, but in a
Right.
comedy it's usually co-directing
Right.
um or uh someone else sole directing,
Okay.
because they have a script and a vision and they go forward with that. So that's kind of how it's gone in the comedy realm. So I would say, yeah, definitely in the comedy realm, it's there's particularly a lot to take away with that.
Totally. I mean, it's comedy is a hard one to trust. It's what might be funny to you. It's nice to have a brainstorming collaborator. So it's tough and it's brave to go forward and direct a whole movie on your own. I'm curious. What did you kind of learn from this process? Did you take away any insights? Solid, things that you can remember for your next film.
Yeah, I think one is really kind of emphasizing flexibility.
Okay.
Being like if something feels good in the moment, allowing that capacity, with
Okay.
the
Totally.
production to be able to do that. Um, I think it's very easy to get set on like we got to do everything according to the script. I spent so
Right.
much time on the script. I spent so much time planning. Here's the shot list.
Right.
Here's all
Right.
these different things, and it's okay to like steer away from that a little bit. Like, there's inspiration that comes with being on a set that you can't get in a writer's room
Right. No,
or
for sure.
in pre-production meetings. And really kind of going back to that flexibility. And then I would say, um, and also just kind of like really re-emerging in experimentation, trying things new. um it's you kind of you get to a point like where like you feel like you're really refined and like you don't want to like you're doing so like you're really confident in so many areas of your craft that you don't want to try something new almost,
Okay, yeah.
experimental.
You've got the formula.
But yeah,
Right.
so it's like I don't want to break that. Um, but in the comedy realm, it's like the perfect place to do that and experiment. And that's what I was able to do with this, and I think that that is becoming applicable to the films that I've already gotten the can or are editing right now or
Totally.
will be shooting in the future. Is just everything. Every single one is like I'm doing something technically or story wise like that's innovative to me. Um, so I think that's kind of something I definitely took away from this.
Well, I love that, and I love the idea that you can keep making more and more projects that change and kind of reinvent themselves in certain ways. I think that keeps it interesting for your audience. Uh, what are these new projects do you have in the works?
Yeah. So one I've got one film in the can that I shot in the fall. That's a short film that spent a lot of time in the edit because there's a lot of experimentation
Mm,
in terms of trying to portray the story and trying different methodology um, and all uh, and almost kind of having the law of subtraction, like
okay,
more is
totally.
less.
Right.
Um, and so it took a while for that, like from the time it got shot to, I think we got picture lock was last month, with a, like, you know, 12, 14-minute short film. Um, and that one's called Jade. It's about a recent college graduate and her journey um, making a career change away from the degree
Mm,
and dealing with the anxiety from that and dealing with her own health issues and trying and on her traveling on her way to tell her parents about that and it's like a culmination all these different things kind of like one big life moment for
okay.
her and kind of doing it in a quiet moment where it's kind of just her kind of you know navigating her internal voice, navigating, um, you know, trauma from COVID,
Right.
um, and it's really definitely a really impactful one. And I'm
Is
really
that more
excited
of a
about
drama?
that. What was that?
Oh, is that more of a drama or is it
Yeah,
dramedy?
yeah, it's a drama.
Okay.
It's kind of almost an experimental drama because
Oh,
of playing
interesting.
around with a lot of the framework is from a like letter to her parents
Oh, okay,
and
interesting.
so there is a lot of visual experimentation with that
Oh,
and sound design too
okay.
so really kind of pushing it there and then one thing that kind of like personal like to me and that it's my first film uh with portraying a character with fibromyalgia and that's
Mm,
something I personally experienced
okay.
and um, so that was really uh, it was a really interesting journey trying to portray that in a accurate and not stereotypical way,
Oh, totally.
um, or where it's not just like checking off a list to meet a criteria.
Right, right.
Yeah. Then currently editing and assisting in all different forms is a documentary project. I'm working with a global nonprofit called F&D Hope um, with a documentary about functional neurological disorder, which is a condition where it's kind of like kind of the root of it is like the mind and it disconnect with the body
Mm,
through
okay.
the nervous system. So like and that's something I experience and there's so many different representations of it. For me personally, I deal with like non-epileptic seizures and tremors, and so I was really passionate about
Totally.
doing a documentary, and I'm directing and editing the short version of it, where we're getting videos from all across the country,
Oh, cool.
from patients and providers and caretakers. Um, so that's something um, I'm really excited about, and then I'm helping kind of played the helping with the foundation for someone else's directing the feature version that's going to
Oh,
get
nice.
funding. So it's
Wow.
yeah, a big journey.
Totally.
And then with Jade, I'm going to be doing. It's the first time I set aside some money to do like an extensive amount of film festival submissions. So
Sweet.
I get to get to do that side of things this year too.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of like the two active things. Um, and then down the road, my next kind of narrative one that I would like to do, that's currently in the revision stage, is a Genesis film.
Okay.
Um, uh, and it's kind of like a 3-act film that takes like 3 different stories, and 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 tells them in unique ways. Yeah, so I know that's quite an assortment. You
That's a
got
lot.
Gumby, you got you got the Bible, you've got a documentary, you've
Right.
got a drama.
Well, I love how diverse the swatch is. How does it feel moving from the lighthearted, fun Glumby to things that are a little bit more personal and serious?
Yeah, it's I think both need to happen
Okay, totally.
in order for me to exist as a filmmaker. I think you need escapism, and then you gotta also be able to relate to it. So like relate to something. So you can like I think going back and forth between these different genres and mediums, it really kind of helps reset and
Okay.
not have that uh burnout or fatigue
Right. You're
from
not
it.
getting stuck.
Yeah, so and then with all this is the with all those kind of shifts, it takes more time. So you're not just like doing, you're not in the drama mode where you can just put out drama after drama after drama. Um, it allows you to kind of slow down, take the amount of time with each film, be patient, and um, yeah. So it's it's pretty interesting bouncing around.
Totally. Well, it's exciting. You have great momentum on these projects. You're in various stages. Ready to release some, getting close with others. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of this new chapter in your work. But is there anything else you'd like to add about Glumby, the final chapters?
Yeah, I would say if you have not seen, if you're someone speaking to the audience, if you're not someone that has seen Glumby the Untold Story, you technically can watch the sequel. There's enough context there, but there's a lot more appreciation for the sequel if you've seen the first one. And to kind of recap, the first one's basically about uh, Gumby, the actor playing Gumby, trying to claim his former glory, kind of like the whole redemptive, past their prime star
Right.
storyline.
Behind the music.
Yep, and so it's like that like whole making a comeback thing, and um, and in a mockumentary format, um, and so that kind of really builds into something that is a larger scope sequel um, that that I like all the different opportunities for satire and
Totally.
experimentation. You know, um, yeah. So I am I'm really excited about getting to be in an audience with it, and really looking forward to um, the film festival. And thank you for
Excellent.
having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for participating in this and submitting another great film. I can't wait to play it on March 17th at the Oregon Short Film Festival. And I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen too. All right. Well, thank you so much, Justin, and I'll see you at the festival.
Thank you.
Take care.